Hi, this is Joe Ingleby, and this is the presentation for the long video for the CSCI 90 end of semester project on our capstone project. What I'm showing on the screen now is a website that I had previously built to track books that I read. The website, I'm not going to go into too much detail on this website, but I'll just explain its functions so I can get onto what I built. I built it to replace a spreadsheet that I had where I would track books that I read. So it works by, I search for books. I might put in Harry Potter. So this goes straight to the Open Library API, get the book, add it to my list, etc. And then when I finish a book, I put it as read and I can write a little review. What I added was this. So this section, tracking authors, is everything that I've done as part of this project. The purpose of this and the reason why I did it is so that I can add an author to a tracked list, which exists in a DynamoDB table. And then whenever they release a new book, I get notified about it. So this, for example, are the authors that I've tracked. Currently, I'm going to add one and I'm going to show how it works now. And then these are the books that they've released recently. So these were all released in 2025. So the way that this works, there are 4 Lambdas connected to APIs on this front end. It's actually 7 Lambdas in total. I'm going to go through all of them. I'm going to show the front end how it works, and then I'm going to show all the Lambdas and how they actually work, and we're going to see a book getting added to the recent books. So I'm going to search for an author. I'm going to search for one I know has had a book released recently and is Australian. So J. Christoph, he had a book released this year. The way it works is I track him. So this is one of the API calls. He's been added as one of my tracked authors. And here he is. So I'm going to go through each of the 4 API calls and Lambdas that connect to this website in a second. But yeah, you can see here I'm tracked authors. I know he's had a book, but he doesn't have a book here yet, and I'll show you why, because I'll show you the process for adding him. So first I'm going to show the APIs. So a few things on this APIs is that there's 4 methods besides options. So there's authors get. So authors get, in fact, I might show, I've got a table here in my project where I show all the different APIs and what they call. Yeah, so authors track get is this one. Sorry, is this one, which gets all the tracked authors that are linked to my profile in the DynamoDB table. And then we have authors track post. Oops. Authors track post, that's to put author into the table against my profile. We have authors track author ID delete, that's to delete from my user profile that author. So I'm not going to click it now, I'll show that at the very end, but that's to remove. And then lastly, to get the upcoming books. So the books that are in the tables, and I'll show the tables now. So this, for example, I've got 3, you can ignore devices. So I've got three tables. So firstly is authors. You can see here J. Christoph is not there, but I'm going to refresh it. And because I just added him, here he is. And what he also doesn't have here is a last check date. That's because the Lambda to check for books that he has released in the last year hasn't run yet. And then I've got tracked authors. So that authors is just all the authors on the site. And this tracked authors are all the author to user relationships. Because I'm the only person using the website, all of these are me. But you can see here he was added on the 16th. Then we have the upcoming books, and these are the actual books that have been released for these authors. So going back to the API, so those are the 4 APIs that run off the gateway, and I can show you here, if I go in, for example, on the integration request, yep, here. So You can see here, these are the settings here where this one runs get tracked, this one runs add tracked, this one runs, it's options, sorry. This one runs remove tracked author, and then this one runs get upcoming books. One thing as well is I did have to put in an authorizer. The authorizer, the website itself uses Supabase to store its for two things: to store all the books that are actually on the website against authors, like the ones that I read. So I'll show that better. All these books are stored in Supabase. But the other thing that Supabase does is authentication, authorization. And the reason I chose Supabase was because when I built this website a while ago, it was free and it worked. I didn't use Amazon, but Supabase needs to send a token to show. So when the API comes in, what the API needs to do is check that the user is authorized to make that API request. To do that, it uses, sorry, I'm on the wrong page. It uses the Supabase Authorizer API. Sorry, it uses the Supabase Authorizer Lambda. I'm going to go through all the Lambdas in a moment, but this Lambda has these settings, and without this Lambda, it wouldn't be I wouldn't be able to make requests. Or sorry, without putting in this type of Lambda, anybody would be able to request the APIs on the website and potentially add things to the tables without being authenticated. This Lambda, which I'll show where it has the secret key from Supabase, has information from Supabase to be able to check whether it's an authorized user has made the initial request. The other thing on these methods is that cause has to be enabled. So that has to be enabled on all of them. On the Lambdas itself, it does have the headers that can be used, and which I might go into now. Okay, so these are there are 7 Lambdas in total. We've covered 5 of them that are attached to. In fact, I might go to this as well because this has a nice table that has them all. So we have 7 Lambdas in total. There's the add tracked author, which is one of the ones that I mentioned. I won't show the code. The code is attached, but what add tracked author does is it gets the author ID, author name from the front end input. It's the user ID and email from the JWT, JSON Web Token, and then it puts it into the DynamoDB table. And then it updates authors to increment the total amount of tracked users for that author. We have remove tracked author, which basically does the opposite. I've got here the permissions that they need to have and what they're invoked by. We have get tracked authors and get upcoming books. I discussed those. Like I mentioned, it gets user ID and or email if it needs it from the JWT. Otherwise, it just updates the tables for what it needs to update. Then I have 2 more Lambdas that are related to the weekly checking for new releases process. I've got check for new releases. What this one needs is it also needs Lambda permissions because it actually triggers out another Lambda that I'll go in for a moment. But what check for new releases does is it checks the Open Library API for any new book releases from those tracked authors. So it goes through all the tracked authors, goes to Open Library API. So it goes from the DynamoDB table, it checks the Open Library API, it filters those only to include what's been released in current year or next year. Side note, the API, I had a lot of challenges working with the APIs, especially finding one that had the release date. I'll go into detail in the challenges section more on that, but unfortunately I can only get the release year for now. Then for each new book, it checks if it's already been added. And so if it hasn't been added, it adds the book and invokes the next Lambda. This Lambda sends an email. So this one sends new release notifications. Whenever there's a new book that's been added to the table, it sends an email via SES. I know in my original document I did SNS. I think SES ended up being easier because it's just a simple email. It's just sending one saying, hey, please be aware that this email's been sent. Again, had a lot of issues with SES, but I did get it to work. The permissions for this Lambda do include SES and DynamoDB, because it does update the table to say notification has been sent. So those are the first 6, and then the last one I mentioned was the Supabase authorizer. This Lambda works by, like I said, it gets the authorization token from the request, and then it verifies that with the Supabase secret key that's loaded as an environment variable. I'm not going to show the environment variable because it's secret, but I did have to load that up. And then it does all the IAM stuff after that. Now, to create these Lambdas, it was, I would say, pretty simple. I put here some screenshots, but I will say that for the Supabase authorizer Lambda, which I'll get here, there was an additional step where, because there's a library to do with the JWT tokens that needs to be, that the Lambda needs to use. So I actually needed to add into layers a JWT library so that it gets imported into the so that the authorizer can use that library. So I've got here at the bottom, it'll have this library's been added. All of them were Python 3.14 and 8664. Well, sorry, I'll exit my WhatsApp. People want to talk to me in Spanish. Okay, so those were the Lambdas. And then what I'll show now as well is the simple email service. So the simple email service was what I chose as a solution for sending out emails. What I needed to do there was I actually needed to... So my email address is verified. I'll get into that in a second. But the main thing I needed to do was set up the domain so that the email could send on behalf of Booklog. Now, usually when you set up the domain, you can do it directly with the... Is it 52 or 53? I think it's 53, actually. I forget. Yep, with Route 53. But because this is a website I set up ages ago and I wasn't using Amazon, I actually set it up in Squarespace. So I'll just load up Squarespace. So in order to do this, I needed to put the DKIM keys here in Squarespace. So I'll just go here and show that information here. So these 1, 2, 3 records were taken from... Where did I put it? Were taken from... the DK, were taken from here. So and what this does is this means that Amazon has permission to send on behalf of Booklog, and so that it can be signed with the right domain key. And by adding it into Squarespace, I'm showing, because in Squarespace I'm showing that I'm the owner of the domain, it shows that there's permission from the owner of the domain to send on behalf of Booklog. Now, the thing with SES as well, which tripped me up, was that by default, they don't actually let you send emails out to what they call non-verified users. So what that means is you can't actually just send emails out. You need to request to upgrade to move out of what they call the sandbox. I have done that and that's already done, but if you haven't got that permission, then what you need to do is verify the email. And to do that, you just need to create the identity for your email. So it'll send an email off to your email and then it'll be verified so you can receive emails. But what I'm now going to show, because I think I've shown everything on how it works, and so I'm going to show the email being sent. So I'll go into... I don't want Supabase authorizer. I want check for new releases. So as a summary, there's for the end-to-end journey, you add an author. You can view who your tracked authors are. So here we've got J. Christoph. You can remove him, which I'll do at the end. And ultimately, what you want to be able to do is see here the books that he's received recently and get a request from it. So what I'm going to do is actually run this manually. Oh, because I have an event bridge. Apologies, because that's the other thing that I set up, was a weekly trigger to send off an email. So I'll just go here. They did change rules while I was in the middle of it, but I do have a rule here where what this rule does is once a week, 10 a.m., it sends out an email. Sorry, it doesn't send an email. It runs this Lambda. So it does check for new releases. Now, I don't want to wait for it, so I can run this manually. So to run it manually, I just go test. And then what it's doing now is it's going to the Dynamo table and then the Open API library to find the author, to find the tracked authors for each user and the new books that they've got released. While this is loading, I might talk about some of the challenges that I had. So with the APIs, I had a lot of challenges. Finding the right API is hard. Google Books didn't have one based on authors, and the way our Open Library stores their data is that they don't necessarily just have one easy API to call. They have an API for works, an API for editions, and another API just for getting books. So what I had to do in the end was choose an API that wasn't based at the edition level. When I had it at the edition level, it was bringing out, every different language version of a book and returning that. And another API, I think at the works level wasn't the best either. It didn't actually have anything on the release date. In the end, I did one API which had the information on all the new releases at the works level. However, it doesn't have the release date, it just has the release year. A different API has the release date. It's something that I'm going to put on my to-do later to get something with the release date, because what I was originally hoping was to do today's date plus minus 6 months. Instead, I'm just doing this year, next year. But we can see here, what it's done is looked for all the different authors. You can see here it's found J. Christoph had a new book. Now, one thing I've also got to try to fix up is it's as good as the data coming in. This is telling me that it's got 3 books released, but actually I know this is all the same book because Empire of the Dawn was the 3rd book in his series that he just released. But here it's saying three books found. We've got Plato, who obviously hasn't released anything recently. Joe Abercrombie, he has. This is something where it's got the API saying that it's Los Diablos y the Devils are actually the same book. It's just one's in Spanish, but it's saying that it already exists, so it's not going to add it in. James Islington, he's got, 1 book added this year. Aristotle, obviously, he's been a bit lazy recently. Gabriel Garcia Marquez, a little bit weird that he's had a book released recently, because I think he's been dead for a while, but that's probably someone else releasing it in his name. But what we care about is this new book detected. So what we're going to now do is go to the front end and see that it added it. So we'll go, recent books. That refresh is one of the lambdas I talked about getting it from there, and there we go. Now, on my to-do list, I think is the API is saying it's 3 different books, but they actually all have the same work ID. So what I might try to do, because I thought, I think it's got 3 different titles, is probably as a thing to do at a later time, is to figure out a way to put this as one. I think I'd have to figure out what the correct title is. Like, I know this is the correct title, but how does the API know it? But it's added. This is good. I'll check the tables, but obviously they're going to be there. So we've got upcoming books, items returned, 7, and it's added these books here. So if I ran that Lambda again, it would say that this is already in the table. So tracked authors, J. Christoph, and now has the date added. The authors table has the last date checked updated. So everyone here has the last date checked, and here total tracker, so only 1 user is tracking for each author. So that's great, but then we also want to check the email. So I'll just check my email to see if I've got a book. Here we go. So I've been practicing, but here we go. 3 minutes ago, notifications at booklog.io. New book release detected, Untitled Vampire number 3. Exciting, huh? Yes, very exciting. So I think that's it. Last thing I'll show maybe is how to remove an author. So I'll remove him. That's running the remove Lambda. And then if I go to tables again, I should see we have 6 items, and now we have 5 items. So he is removed, and I can see here in tracked authors, he should also, we have 6, and it should go down to 5. Great. So one very last thing. Here, what I did also add was this button here to add the book. So I can go straight to adding it to my shelf. This was an existing functionality, so I'm just using the existing because it uses the Open Library work code, unique identifier. So I just used this link and added it to the table. So I'm going to put this on my want to read list. I haven't started it yet, so that's all good. Added the book added successfully. So now we go, and it's there. It hasn't brought in the cover, which has been annoying, but I think that's more of a Open API, the Open Library API question. That's the end of my video. I hope I covered everything. I've included all of the code as an attachment. Otherwise, this document does have everything how to implement it. I will say that implementing it is very specific to my website. So I don't actually think anybody could go and implement this, but they would probably need to create their own ways on the to call the APIs. I did include the GitHub where this website is stored, as well as the specific pages relating to this section. However, you can't just use this because I've set up Superbase for authorization, and it exists within the wider application. This is more adding a service to an existing application. But happy to answer any other questions. If I missed anything, please refer to my document, or I'm happy to discuss. Thank you.